Title: Digger from Moonshiners. A Tale of Love, Illness, Money, and Burial. Holmes Sarah Main's biography. Digger from Moonshiners chronicles not only the life of the enigmatic character known as Digger, but also delves deeply into the complex world surrounding him, his relationships, the challenges he faced, and the choices he made. A fascinating tapestry of themes emerges throughout the narrative, including the delicate balance of love and hardship, the struggle with illness, the relentless pursuit of money, and the cultural significance of burial homes. This exploration serves as a tribute to the resilience of the human spirit, especially when confronted with the harshest of circumstances. The story invites readers to reconsider their perspectives on the choices people make when driven by necessity, fear, love, and loss. Chapter 1. The Moonshiners' life. The Moonshiners' trade has always been steeped in secrecy, danger, and an allure that draws in those who have little to lose. Digger was no exception. Born into a world where survival was not guaranteed, Digger's early life was shaped by the harsh realities of Appalachia. His family, steeped in the tradition of illegal alcohol production, had carved out an existence on the fringes of society. But Digger was different from the rest of his kin. His mind often drifted, his thoughts wandering beyond the forests and mountain ridges that had become a prison of sorts for his ancestors. The Moonshiner's life was not one of glory or fame. It was a life built on risk, deception, and a constant game with the law. The moonshine still, tucked away in remote hollows, was the heartbeat of the operation. It was a business, though one that involved a hidden war with Prohibition-era enforcers and rival distillers. And yet, despite the illicit nature of his work, Digger was drawn to the trade with a fervor that few could understand. In the quiet nights, as the moon cast its silvery glow over the hills, he found a strange sense of purpose. But it was not just the allure of the moonshine that kept him in this line of work. It was the promise of money, the escape from the cycle of poverty that had held his family in its grip for generations. The allure of wealth, the possibility of a future beyond the hills, gave Digger hope. And with that hope came the desire to leave something behind, something that could make a mark on the world, even if it was born of shadows. Chapter 2. A wife in the shadows. At the heart of Digger's story lies his wife, Emma. She was not born into the life of a moonshiner's spouse, but love often leads people into the most unexpected circumstances. Digger met Emma at a local fair, where she was working as a seamstress. She was everything he wasn't: calm, composed, and practical. But her quiet strength was something Digger could not ignore. Emma was the anchor Digger needed to tether his wild heart to a life of stability, even if that life was as uncertain as the one he'd been born into. Their courtship was brief, filled with stolen moments and whispered promises. It was clear that Emma saw something in Digger that others didn't, a glimmer of goodness buried beneath the rough exterior of a moonshiner. She didn't ask for much from him. She was content with small pleasures: the shared laughter over dinner, the warmth of his hand in hers, and the simple beauty of their life together. But love, like all things, is not immune to hardship. Emma soon found herself entwined in the dark web of Digger's moonshining world. It wasn't long before she learned that the life she had married into was fraught with risks that extended far beyond Digger's work itself. The danger of being caught by the law, the bitter hostility from rival moonshiners, and the constant stress of having to cover up his illicit activities wore her down. Despite her best efforts to shield him from the worst of it, Emma could feel the weight of Digger's choices pulling them both into a downward spiral. Still, Emma loved him deeply. And as the years passed, her love was tested by more than just the dangers of moonshining. The illness that began to plague her body would become the greatest challenge their marriage would ever face. Chapter 3. The illness that stole her strength it started with small signs: fatigue, a lack of appetite, and an occasional cough that wouldn't go away. At first, Emma dismissed it as a passing illness, but as time passed, the symptoms grew worse. Her skin paled, and she lost weight rapidly. Digger, ever the optimist, insisted that it was just a seasonal cold or the result of overwork. But deep down, both knew something more sinister was at play. When Emma was finally diagnosed with a rare form of cancer, the world that Digger had carefully built around them seemed to crumble. In the face of her illness, nothing seemed as important as it once had. Moonshine, money, and survival suddenly took on an air of futility. Emma's diagnosis was a brutal reminder of how fragile life truly was. For the first time in his life, he felt powerless. He couldn't fix this, couldn't make her better. The man who had always been able to navigate the dangers of moonshining, who had always found a way to survive and thrive, was suddenly faced with something that no amount of money or moonshine could cure. The thought of losing Emma filled him with an overwhelming dread. As Emma's condition worsened, Digger was forced to confront the reality that he had not prepared for. He had spent his entire life running from his past, from the law, from everything that had ever tried to hold him down. But this was different. There was no escaping death, no running from the inevitable. The thought of life without Emma haunted him. Chapter 4. The price of money. As Emma's illness progressed, Digger's desperation grew. He needed money to pay for her medical treatments, money to give her the best chance at survival, money to keep the darkness at bay. The familiar world of moonshining that had always been his lifeline now became a source of even greater stress. The trade that had once been about survival now felt like a weight around his neck. He couldn't stop, not when Emma was depending on him. But the risks were greater than ever. Digger threw himself into his work, making deals with rival moonshiners and finding new ways to smuggle his product across county lines. But the pressure was mounting. Law enforcement had caught wind of his activities, and the sense of imminent danger made everything feel more urgent. He also found himself caught in a moral dilemma. The money that he was earning came at a steep cost. He was breaking the law every time he made a sale. The weight of his actions began to wear on him, and he often found himself questioning whether the pursuit of money was worth the toll it was taking on his soul. But what choice did he have? Emma's life was at stake, and he couldn't afford to fail her. Chapter 5. The burial home. Eventually, Emma's battle with cancer came to an end. In her final days, she had been weak, fragile, and dependent on others for even the simplest tasks. But her spirit remained strong, and in her last moments, she held onto Digger's hand as though it were the only thing keeping her anchored to this world. Digger was left with nothing but the weight of grief and a sense of deep, unresolvable loss. His world, once full of ambition, now seemed empty. The moonshine that had once been his escape now felt like a hollow reminder of everything he had sacrificed. But Emma was gone, and Digger was left to navigate the world without her. The funeral was a quiet affair, the simplicity of the ceremony standing in stark contrast to the tumult of Digger's emotions. The burial home was a somber place, a building filled with echoes of those who had passed before. Digger stood at the head of Emma's grave, the wind tugging at his coat, and for the first time, he truly understood the finality of life. The funeral home, with its marble walls and dark wooden pews, seemed to embody the stillness that had come over his life. The process of death, of burying his wife, was a reminder that money and moonshine could not protect anyone from the inevitable. It was a sobering realization, one that left Digger with a sense of profound isolation. In the face of death, everything seemed insignificant. Chapter 6. A new beginning. After Emma's passing, Digger found himself at a crossroads. He could continue down the same path, the path of moonshining and money, or he could try to build something different, something that honored Emma's memory and the love they had shared. The decision was not an easy one, but as the years went by, Digger began to find peace. He took what little money he had earned and invested in a small piece of land. There he started a new life, far from the world of moonshine and danger. It wasn't easy, and there were moments when he longed for the days of his old life, but the quiet life he found gave him the space to reflect. He would never forget Emma, and he would always carry her memory with him, but he had come to understand that there was more to life than wealth or survival. The legacy of love, sacrifice, and perseverance that Emma had left behind would always be his true treasure. In the end, Digger's story was not just about moonshine or money. It was about love and loss, about the choices we make when faced with adversity, and about finding meaning in the face of life's inevitable end. Emma had taught him that there was more to life than what could be measured by wealth or status. In the end, it was the love they shared that would live on in his heart, long after the moonshining days had faded into memory. Conclusion: Digger from Moonshiners is more than just the story of a man involved in illegal activities. It is a deeply human story about love, illness, the price of money, and the inevitable passage of time. Eric Main's biography captures the complexity of life and the difficult choices that define us.